All right, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Why not? See what other trouble I can get into.
I just wanted to dig you out of a hole before, the hole
It's all good.
got much
I
bigger.
just, I dug myself a massive hole, but you know what? I won't be on the show till next Wednesday, so it's okay. Plenty of time for me to get stuff thrown at me.
Yes. Fill in the blank. Marcus Freeman saying today that cornerback Benjamin Morrison, who had shoulder surgery this spring, will be a partial participant when fall training camp opens on July 31st and is not expected to be cleared to play until sometime close to the season opener, August 31st.
Worrisome. It's a little worrisome for me. I think, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, obviously, and so I don't know what the normal return to play is for this particular injury, but I figured he'd be good to go by the time they opened up camp. And the fact that they're already saying on May 31st that on July 31st, he's not going to be ready to go, that's worrisome to me. And so are they being overly cautious? That's possible because you don't want him to hurt it again doing something stupid, or something small in practice. And so they're going to hold him out of certain things and he'll participate in certain things. And so he'll be limited, but to me, it's still worrisome that he's not going to be full go.
Look, and this is, again, this comes from me, someone who's had both of my labrums done, and we don't know specifically that it was a labrum, but it sure, with the timeline that we're being given, because August 31st is around 5 months out from his surgery. And, again, just all the things that you have to go through. And like Michael was in here yesterday saying, well, he had his sling off, after the Blue Gold game and all this different stuff. Well, he was still wearing the sling afterwards. He might have just taken it off as, like it might have had a cramp and he had to kind of straighten it out a little bit and then put it back on. Look, shoulders are a very delicate thing because you're talking about ligaments and all this different stuff. And, that if they had to go in and put in some kind of pins to stabilize it, that takes time to heal. And that's just for a normal person doing normal things. It's a very slow process to get back to 100% once you do that surgery, and you go in there with those scopes and, all these different things. And then you're trying to get mobility back and you're also trying to play football. Just the process of reaching up to try to swat a ball away with a shoulder that has been surgically repaired, that's a big deal. Just something that seems minor. And that's not even taking into account, if your arm, your shoulder gets hyperextended when you go down to the ground, all those different things. So to me, like you said, I mean, we're still 2 months away. We're exactly 2 months from today until training camp starts. And they're saying he's going to be limited. And basically, they hope that he's going to be a partial participant, and they hope that he's ready to go by the time the season opens. That is not an overly good sign for me right now.
Completely agree. And again, maybe they're being cautiously cautious about the whole thing. And that would be not surprising if that was the case. But the fact that they're announcing it this early just worries me a little bit. It's worrisome for sure. We'll see how involved he is when we get, practice availability and stuff like that first week of August.
Right. Maybe it comes quickly, but they're obviously going to take it slowly. And that could be, that is the other side of it. You obviously want to be cautious and you don't want to rush him back too soon. But at the same time, so maybe they bring him along slowly, and by the middle of training camp, maybe he is ready to go. But it's just something we're not going to know until they get there. And this has been one of my chief concerns all along is how good that secondary is. Obviously rests on how healthy one of your
he's the best one, right? Or I mean,
right.
I guess you can make the argument between him and Xavier Watts, obviously. But those are two lockdown guys that you need to have there if you want to have an elite secondary. And him not being there, that's a major problem. So I hope obviously what matters is August 31st, not July 31st. We know this, right?
Sharp says it took him 6 months to recover from labrum. And that's right around, again, having both of them, that's like both times. That's around what it took. Like they can call it, well, he had a procedure. Well, anything is a procedure. And anytime you have to use a scope, that's not good right off the bat. So we'll see. We can keep our fingers crossed and and
Right.
be hopeful, but only time is going to tell, obviously. Fill in the blank. Devyn Ford. This is something else that Marcus Freeman
Right.
addressed today. Devyn Ford moving back to running back after playing safety this spring is blank.
Expected. We know why he moved to safety. It wasn't because he's going to provide safety depth or anything like that. It was so that he could practice tackling as their number one special teams guy. And now that you're down a running back, you need him for numbers over there. And he's a running back by trade. He knows the offense. So that's an obvious, easy move. Having 5 running backs in camp is what you want.
Right.
Lots of carries to go around, that kind of a thing. And so he's more now beneficial to this team as a running back and providing depth there than he is as a safety, providing any kind of depth there. So he's still going to be your number one special teams guy, but he's also going to provide depth offensively at running back during camp.
Yeah. I mean, again, we talked about the Jabron Payne injury on yesterday's show, and it just makes sense that you would move Devyn. They moved Devyn Ford over there because he was the 6th running back, essentially, with, when Jabron Payne was healthy, and now he is at least the 5th running back. It is going to be interesting, like Joe Allen says, 3rd down man. That was Jabron Payne's role, that short yardage, goal line type stuff. I still think one of the other 2 freshmen, Aeneas Williams or Kedron Young, are both like more physically built for that than Devyn Ford is.
Agreed.
Personally.
Devyn Ford is still going to have pretty much the same role that he probably had last year for the most part. I mean, he's going to be the number one special teams guy. That's his role on this team. But you have to have another position, and so he's going to provide depth at running back. Look, a month of camp. Now, they'll say it's 2 weeks of camp and then 2 weeks of preparation for game 1 or what. It's a month of practice. Not only do you need arms to throw the ball, that's why you have 4 scholarship quarterbacks plus a walk-on, but you need guys to carry the football. And you don't want to be putting all of those miles on the guys that you're going to be counting on during the season.
Yeah.
And so moving him back makes all the sense in the world.
Yep. So Jordan Faison and Tyler Buchner are, of course, the latest high-profile 2-sport athletes at Notre Dame. I've been kicking around this week after the year that Jordan Faison had. How would you rank the top 5 2-sport Notre Dame athletes over the last 20 years?
So I could only come up with 6. Okay. So narrowing it down to 5 wasn't that hard since I could only come up with 6. So here's my list from bottom to top. Okay. And this is my, these are the guys I like, not necessarily the guys that were the most successful. Does that make sense? So number 5, Tyler Buchner. Number 4, Jordan Faison. Number 3, Torrey Hunter Jr. Number 2, Golden Tate. Number 1, Jeff Samardzija.
I forgot about Torrey Hunter. That's right. See, I left him off my list. Now, don't forget, this is 2-sport. It is not exclusive to football. So I'll go the other way.
Okay, good call. Didn't think about that.
I'll go the other way. Jeff Samardzija is who I have at the top of the list. And I mean, we got to live like up close and personal through the Jeff Samardzija.
Yes.
And it took over the world, basically.
Like he was like a rock star.
He was.
He was a rock star.
He and Zibikowski were literally rock stars.
Yep.
Is what and of course Samardzija had the hair.
I didn't think about Zibikowski. He's a boxer.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't even think about him.
I said his name and I didn't even think about him. He might have a sport guy. That's right.
He might have crossed my list. I mean, he probably would have been on my list if I would have thought about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Pat Connaughton, you left off your list.
Basketball and baseball, yes.
Don't forget, he was drafted in both sports, and the Orioles were really hopeful that he was going to give baseball a shot and try to be a pitcher in the organization, but instead he's been in the NBA for the last several years. And then Golden Tate. Now, Tate was more football. He more or less dabbled in baseball,
right?
Because
he stole
played
some bases.
Baseball, he didn't. Right. He didn't really excel, and I'm not, taking a shot at Golden Tate because he's a great athlete, but he stole some bases and basically turned some singles into doubles and things like that because of just the blazing speed that he had. But then I've got Faison, and then Zibikowski. I would put him honorable mention. That's a good one. Who's the other one that you? Torrey Hunter.
Torrey Hunter.
Got him honorable mention.
The 6th person that I thought of originally when I had my 5 was Evan Sharpley, but he didn't make my top 5.
Evan. That's right. I mean, because he only got to play in a handful of football games.
Right.
Dropped some bombs from time to time on the baseball diamond, but
and he played some minor league baseball, I believe. That's what
Right.
he was doing post-graduate.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. That's right. Eric Most was another one that I think kind of gets forgotten. Do you remember him? He was the punter, and then he was a pitcher for the baseball team.
Oh, okay.
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good innings eater type guy.
The name is cloudy to me, but yeah.
He was like along the lines of, like a Greg Maddux, Kyle Hendricks type.
Okay.
Not a lot of velo, but he had a nice curveball and he could kind of pitch backwards a little bit, throw some junk at you, try to finish you with the fastball.
He could place the ball.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a goofy, fun guy.
Okay.
I'll say that. And I like Eric Moss maximized everything, I think, in his time at Notre Dame. Cole Kmet was another one, but again, like didn't get to, only pitched a little bit, parts of a couple seasons with the baseball team. That's a pretty good list, though.
And Brian from New York says Drake Bowen belongs on that list before Buchner. And that, I mean, you can say that.
Have you looked at Drake Bowen's baseball stats? He did not play much this year.
Right. I mean,
he basically like that highlight in the season, in that season opening series against Rice when he was pinch running. That's like his highlight of the entire season.
That was a pinch running. Like he didn't even get on base himself. Like he was a pinch runner. And look, we're not taking anything away from Drake Bowen. Playing two sports in college level is a very difficult thing to do. But sorry.
Great athlete. He hasn't done it yet. We just have to see him.
Thank you. Tyler Buchner won a national championship in lacrosse, and he was a contributor on the team. And so, and again, this was my personal list. I like Tyler Buchner as a person. I don't know Drake Bowen, to be perfectly honest. I like Tyler Buchner, so he's higher on my list.
So Daniel Stabler is asking what round Samardzija got drafted in. 5th round.
Right.
5th round is where he got drafted by the Cubs. Yep. We did bring up Tom Zibikowski. He was a Golden Gloves boxer. Remember, he did that big pay-per-view thing out in New York City, and a lot of the team went out there.
Yeah.
Pay-per-view.
Yep.
All that. So that was just a crazy time. Man.
It was.
Tommy
man.
Z.
Those guys were rock stars, man.
Oh, I know.
Yep. It was cool.
Tommy Z. Decaf says, baseball team was garbage. Lots of players transferring out. Well, I mean, there are at least a few players transferring out. They were not good. I will say that. Jesse and I talked about that last week. They
literally lost every road ACC game this year. Like, that's tough to do.
They got swept 6. Their ACC, the only 9 wins in the ACC. It tied for their worst ACC record ever, and that was their first season in the ACC. So they've gone from College World Series 2 years ago to tying for the worst record they've ever had in ACC play. There's a lot of things that need to get better over there. It starts with the pitching, but they also got to figure some things out hitting. So you can.
Those are two pretty big things.
That's exactly right. I mean, basically both things are broken right now. And in the meantime, Link Jarrett is down there at Florida State hosting a regional this weekend, and wouldn't be surprised if he's back in Omaha when it's all said and done here in a couple weeks. So we had a super chat come in early, and I don't know if Joshua's still around, but I was saving it. Thank you for the super chat, Joshua. And he says, when the softball coach retired, you talked about not wanting to follow a great. I think Coach Ivey will be the exception. How long do you think she will stay? Can you see a statue and championships? And I guess, I mean, do you want to start?
I think she will be the exception, but I think
she's already the exception.
Right. She was groomed to take that spot, though, too. It's not like she's stepping in to a situation that she was unfamiliar with. You know what I mean? And so I think that changes the dynamic a little bit. Look, there's no reason this team shouldn't be a Final Four team this year. And if everybody stays healthy and all that stuff happens, and if you're a Final Four team, you got a chance to win the national championship. And if you win the national championship, there's a chance you're going to get a statue on campus. So I absolutely could see a statue and championships in the future for Niele Ivey. No doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of the reason she was groomed for the position was because, like, it's not a coincidence, and Muffet McGraw has talked about this before, where the program, they won the national championship in 2001. They were a consistent tournament team for the next several years. But in the 2007-2008 season is where Niele Ivey came back as an assistant coach after her WNBA playing days were done. And at that point, within like a year or two, is when Skylar Diggins was recruited, and she came in, and then they continued to stack recruits like that, elite recruit after elite recruit. It's not a coincidence that the program became elite again with all those Final Four runs and
Right.
national championship game appearances. Niele Ivey played a huge part in that with her recruiting. And that's part of why, similar to Marcus Freeman, they were so confident in giving an inexperienced, a coach with no a career assistant coach with no head coaching experience. They were confident in promoting her to that position because of the elite recruiting that she had already showed she could do at the program. And when you look at how the program is performing right now, that's why, because of the elite recruiting. So, I mean, I think she's going to be here for a long time in terms of statues and championships. I think that a championship is in the future. And then it's just a matter of, are you going to give every coach who wins a championship a statue? It's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have. They should have one, gilded in gold for the fencing coach.
Right.
I mean,
that's right.
If we're just handing out trophies, and obviously the lacrosse coach would deserve one as well. And so I'm sure the the statue making company is going to be busy.
Correct. So Decaf, I'll clean it up a little bit. He says, not trying to be a jerk, but what did the softball coach win? They never even made it out of a regional and choked hosting the ACC tournament last season. Well, I mean, they were in the NCAA tournament every year for more than 2 decades when she was here. Like, there's still a lot of
all-time winningest coach at Notre Dame.
There's still a lot of coaches who would like to have the track record that Deanna Gump had. Now, to be fair, I mean, that and she knows it. She's well aware of it. You don't think that it drove her crazy that they weren't able to win some of those regionals, and they hosted a regional a few years back and they weren't able to win. Like, that obviously was the big knock. I was having this conversation because the Women's College World Series is going on right now, so the game started on TV yesterday. Jesse and I were talking about this yesterday. Softball is all about, do you have the elite pitcher or not? I mean, those are the teams that ultimately get to Oklahoma City, where the Women's World Series is. The elite pitcher is the one that gets you there. And Notre Dame has had some good pitchers to really good pitchers over the years, but they just never had that pitcher, the kind that could get them to the promised land. I mean, that's ultimately what that sport comes down to. Do you have the pitcher in the circle or not? That's what it's all about.
Yep.
Another super chat. Thank you very much. I can't. What does that say? I can't read all those letters when they're together.
It's Reliq.
Reliq. Okay.
Yep.
He says, would it be smart to make Buchner the holder also for fakes, given his athleticism and arm?
I mean, you don't put somebody as a holder because they're good at fakes. And very rarely is the holder going to get it and just start running with it. I mean, you're starting with your knee on the ground, first of all, which is a difficult position to be in if you're trying to run for a fake or anything like that. Look, he's got good hands. I think we've established that. And so that's all I want. I want somebody with good hands, with quick response time. And if he can throw the ball a little bit, that's great too. I mean, again, almost every college football program in the country has their punter as the holder. Some punters are more athletic than others. I'll just say that. So you don't need an athletic guy back there. You want a guy that can catch the ball and put it down. That's
back in my day, Vince, we had a backup quarterback who was also the punter. His name was Danny White with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if you remember that. And when Roger Staubach retired, Danny White, became the starting quarterback and took them to, 3 straight NFC championships. They lost them all, but he was also still the punter. I think that's the last time that's ever happened in the NFL. Like,
there you go.
And I believe he did some holding as well as the backup quarterback back then. And they're like, my guy Romo, you remember like the most infamous play of his career
This
in
is
that
true.
playoff
He
game
was the
against
holder.
Seattle. He began the season as the backup quarterback, but became the starting quarterback. But he also began the season as the holder. And even when he was the starting quarterback, he was still the holder, which is why, the whole botched hold and all that stuff against Seattle in that playoff game.
Sure.
He didn't quite make it into the end zone.
Yep. I wouldn't. I personally would not make somebody a holder based on their ability to run or
First
fake
thing
or
is
anything
hands.
like
Can he
that.
get it?
Absolutely.
Can he put it down?
Right.
And that's something that Marty Biaggi is going to have to judge if he decides he wants to look at that, because that will be something, as we've talked about, when these guys get back on campus this summer, that'll be something that they work on. If he wants to audition somebody else, I'm sure, he's identified some other guys over the course of the spring who are going to get the first crack at it. Maybe he'll give Tyler Buchner a shot, but yeah.
They don't scholarship holders. Somebody said that what a waste of a scholarship for a holder. They don't scholarship holders. It's somebody that's already on the team that becomes the holder. Maybe they have a scholarship. Maybe, like I said, it's usually the starting punter, but they don't. That's not a thing. There's no holder rankings out there for like recruiting and things like that. There's long snapper, punter, and kicker, and then everybody else learns how to hold, basically.
Right. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the NCAA is considering allowing schools to display corporate logos on their football fields this season.
Disappointing, but inevitable, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like, I'm not surprised. I'm still under the impression in my own brain, which is totally wrong, but I'm still under the impression that college sports is, supposed to be this pure thing. It's not. And so the fact that they're going to put corporate logos, they already had the NCAA logo on people's or on teams' fields, so that's a corporate entity. So I guess why not make some money on it? I don't know. I don't like it.
What color is the sky in your world?
I know. Look, I know I'm delusional when it comes to this kind of stuff. That's why I say it's inevitable. I just don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, look, with this revenue sharing thing and the fact that you don't have to pay, you don't have to spend up to the $20 million, but if you're not spending the money, then you're going to fall behind in terms of getting them here and retention and the whole thing. And it's another revenue source. And I've got to think that that's a part of why they're going this route, because it gives schools another revenue source to be able to do this. I'll say this though, like if I go scale of 1 to 10 that Notre Dame would ever do it, I would say 10 that they don't. Like I don't think Notre Dame would ever do, because this was a big part of the discussion when they built the video board. People were worried, that like they were going to have advertisements and all that stuff up on the video board. They're not doing that, right? If they're not doing it on the video board, I can't see them putting corporate logos down on their field.
Good point. No, that's a really good point, because that was kind of the middle ground, right? When people were all upset about them bringing in the video board, they're like, look, we're not going to advertise on it. And they haven't. They've stayed true to their word on that. So if they're not going to put it up there, which is super duper easy to do, then they're probably not going to put it on the field. So I guess the team that I follow isn't going to do it, so that's a good thing.
And I mean, right now they're talking about football fields. I mean, I assume they're going to have to allow it for any playing surface, right? Whether it's a basketball court or a lacrosse field, baseball, whatever.
Right.
I assume if you're going to open it up to a football field, that any playing surface is going to be. Now, Sharp asked what the next question was. They're still debating about doing it on uniforms. So if you're doing it on the field, do you buy or sell it on the uniforms? Like WNBA right now.
Oh my God.
And I know that there are other leagues that do it,
but like
they're a prominent one.
Like some of the WNBA uniforms, they don't even have the name of the team on the front.
They just have the
sponsors like that. I hate that. That's awful. That is terrible. The NFL right now does like the patches of like corporate sponsors and things like that. I hate it. I don't like it. It's a huge sell for me. If we're just going to talk about Notre Dame, for example, Notre Dame's uniform is an iconic, simple uniform. You throw like a Gurley Leap patch on there, which is a local car dealership for the people who don't live around here. You throw like a Gurley Leap patch on, it's going to be horrible.
Well,
horrible.
But what's the difference between that and having an Under Armour logo or a Jumpman logo or a Nike or Adidas or, what's the difference? Just because
the difference is they made the uniform.
Yeah, but it's a logo, right?
Yeah, but the car dealership didn't make the uniform.
They're both paying money though to be there.
I get it, but they're providing something and they put their logo on the thing that they're actually providing.
Right.
That's the difference to me. That's the difference to me.
But again, you've already got logos on the jerseys. And the reason the logo is there is because that company is spending the money. And so if you're talking about corporate, they want to spend the money as well. I would say I would limit it to one. And they would have to determine, I'm sure they'll determine like what the size could be. It can't be bigger than X. I obviously would not want it to be prominent, like limit it to one of the shoulders or even the back of the helmet, something like that. Like I would not want it to
be awful
prominent on the front of the jersey kind of thing.
It'd be awful to put corporate sponsorship on a gold helmet. Be awful. Terrible. Awful.
Again, like I just based on Notre Dame's, sort of their track record, I would have a hard time seeing them go
I would too.
far down this road.
I would too. I mean, you could make the case like it says Rydell on the back of a helmet, right? Because they make the helmet. Like, right. Is that corporate sponsorship? I guess. But they made the helmet. Same thing with the sponsorship on the jersey. They made the jersey. I don't know. I would hate to see. I don't even like, to be honest with you, I don't even like, what was it? Was it the COVID year that they had the big patch?
The ACC?
It wasn't the ACC. It was like a fight, or it was some term that the football team was using during that season. Do you remember what it was?
I don't.
Whatever it was, I didn't like it then either. And it was a Notre Dame thing. Like it was a Notre Dame slogan that the team was using. And when they went to the bowl game, they had the bowl game logo. They had that other thing, rally. That's what it was. Yeah, it was rally. I didn't like that either. It was dumb. Like I just get rid of the patches. The only patch that belongs on there is a C if you're a captain. That's it.
Decap says Under Armour wouldn't let him put anything on the jersey.
It won't be up to Under Armour. Sorry, like that. No, because there will be patches. If they allow this, there will be teams that have Under Armour uniforms that will absolutely have corporate sponsorships on
right.
there.
Obviously, you wouldn't be able to cover the Under Armour, but
right, 100%, yeah. But
I don't think the uniform manufacturer is going to have any say in whether or not a school puts another logo.
Because I would go right back to the school if I was, let's say I'm Ball State or somebody like that, right? And I go back to them and be like, okay, well, if you're not going to let me make money on that, putting a patch on the jersey, then are you going to pony up that dough? Are you going to give me that money? Because we have operating expenses that we need to pay for, and they're willing to give us this money for a patch on the jersey. So if you don't want it, cool, but you better be paying us that money.
Yes. So your Chicago Bears, Vince, have been picked to be the team for HBO's Hard Knocks in training camp this season. They've said no to doing the show in the past, and they had to be told that they were going to be on it this year, basically. So what do you think about the Bears finally being on Hard Knocks for the first time this season?
I am intrigued because I think this is a very interesting offseason for the Bears, right? The only reason that I'm not overly excited about it is because I don't get HBO. And so I'm not going to be able to watch it. So
I'm sure somebody will have a log on so you can
I might have to call somebody. But if I do get it, I will watch it. I mean, I like those behind the scenes, regardless of whether that's the Bears or not. And if it's the Bears, that's obviously more intriguing to me. But I like those behind the scenes things. I really do.
I do too.
In a different life, like in my own mind, like in a different life, I would have loved to go into coaching. I didn't because I had a young family and I never, I don't want to move them around and all of those different things. You know what I mean? So it never was a realistic possibility for me. But like in my alternate universe, right? that I would have loved to go down that road. You know what I mean? And so that's why I love watching all that behind the scenes stuff.
You're hanging out with Rex Ryan, getting a snack and, doing all that.
I would have loved to be like a GM or a director of player personnel or something like that at some point. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that would have been an ideal job for me.
So the Bears were one of 10 teams that had never done the show, and Hard Knocks has been around since 2001.
Wow.
The Bears, the Broncos, and the Saints were the 3 teams who fit the criteria of the NFL could tell you you're going to do the show
Right.
this year. So the criteria was, to fit the criteria where the NFL can tell you don't have a new head coach, you haven't made the playoffs the previous 2 seasons, and you haven't been on Hard Knocks in the past 10 years. And I think it all lines up for the Bears perfectly. Look, you had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, and you've got all this hope and promise. You've never been on the show. You're freaking market 3. I mean, the NFL wants
Right.
the Bears to be
100%.
good. Yeah, that's right. So I think it's kind of exciting to kind of get to see some of this. Hopefully it's, they've changed the focus of I know you haven't watched it, but when the show started, and really for probably more than 10 years, they would obviously, spend some focus on the head coach and some of the more prominent players and stuff like that. And like last year, it was the Jets. And obviously, there was a lot of focus on Aaron Rodgers because he's never met a camera that he doesn't like. So, they focused on Aaron Rodgers quite a bit. But what they didn't do was focus on, they would always find a handful of bubble guys on the roster and follow them throughout.
Right.
Are they going to make the cut at the end and all that? The Jets didn't want them doing that. I do too. And that's the kind of stuff that my wife actually likes. She'll watch Hard Knocks with me, and she likes that kind of stuff. And then the season will start, and she's like, "Oh, is so and so still on the team or what?"
Right.
No, he got cut. He didn't make it.
Well, and you want to see what kind of life are those guys leading? You know what I mean? They're not the superstars that are making all the money. And you see these guys coming home to their, undecorated apartments and, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of like that way of going about it.
Yeah. The Bears are the first team to be picked for Hard Knocks who had the number 1 overall pick in the draft since Baker Mayfield in 2018. He was the number 1 pick when the Browns did it that year. So 6 years?
Wow.
Since then?
Baker Mayfield was 6 years ago. Wow.
I know. What do you think is the best thing that can come of this for the Bears? What's the worst thing that could come of it?
So the question is for the Bears, not for Vince. So that's an important differentiation.
This is not Vince centric this time.
Well, yeah, this question. Yeah.
Right.
Because the best thing for Vince would be what DK said here is they want to film the meltdown of Caleb. I think that would be hilarious. But it's not about me. The best thing that could happen is that Caleb is the leader that they envision him to be, and that he goes out there and does all the things that they want him to do and leads them to all the victories that they want him to lead him to, right? The worst thing that could happen is that he's a flop, is that it didn't work out. You know what I mean? That he's showing up late to practices, that he's bringing his entourage around, all of that could be a major problem for the Bears.
I mean, I think the best thing that can happen is Caleb Williams performs great, and the Bears coaching staff and everybody, it looks like they're fully competent, and people actually like some of these personalities that they're seeing that they've never got the chance to see before. The worst thing that can happen, I think, is just that, I still have questions about the coaching staff that the Bears have, Eberflus and the whole thing. And now, obviously, if Caleb Williams is looking like a train wreck in training camp, that's not going to help them by any means. But there is, they do control the narrative to some extent, in terms of what they show. So that'll be the interesting.
Did the Bears control the narrative?
Well, they have input,
I don't know.
Because, again, like Robert Saleh told them last year, the Jets head coach, that they didn't want him, like when they were making cuts, for example, because they would always, at the end of these shows, when cuts started being made, they would, they would get the call, bring your playbook in, and then they would sit down, with the head coach and or the general manager, and have the conversation about why you're not making the team. The Jets wouldn't let them show any of that for example.
Okay.
Like just
I
as an
gotcha.
example of, like,
Right.
so they do have at least
A little
some
bit of
input,
say. Okay.
as in terms of what can and can't be shown on the
Okay.
show.
Okay. That'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see how much they show of Caleb Williams off the field.
Right.
That's what
I'm sure they're going to follow him at least in that
You
first
have
show.
to.
Like he's got to be the focus of the first
He's
show.
the number one pick. He's got to be the focus of every show.
Yeah.
Now you can have other subplots and different things, and I think that would all be intriguing. But at the end of the day, that's got to be the number one deal. I mean, they sold the farm, and they clearly did. Their offseason was clearly geared towards bringing him in as the quarterback and being the number one guy. I mean, so how's that going to work out? That's your number one story. How's that going to work?
Right. Exactly. And that's I'm anxious to see it. I know that there's somebody in my house who's a Bears fan who's really excited to see it.
She is.
I'm not a Bears fan, but
I know you're not. But that's
like,
okay.
I'm curious. I'm like with all the newness of the Bears and Caleb Williams specifically. I'm anxious to see the whole thing.
You can revel in it with us.
So there's a guy who lives in Kansas City area. He's got a collection of more than 250 full-size college football helmets. I saw he had a photo of them all out on, like, taking up his whole yard recently.
Crazy.
Would you want to have that many full-size helmets? 250 plus.
No. I tend to trip over the one helmet that's in our house, and that's my child's. Like, it's always in the most inconvenient place. Obviously when the season starts, it's at school, but until then, it's at our house. And I would definitely not have the room nor the inclination to have that many helmets in my house. That's ridiculous.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you would literally have to have at least, one good size room, if not multiple rooms,
probably
dedicated.
multiple.
Yeah. To housing these things.
You coached
quite a bit.
You coached high school football.
Yeah.
For even if it was a brief amount of time. You know how much space it takes to store helmets, right? And we certainly, on the team that you and I coached for, didn't have 250 of them.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We maybe had half of that, right? And it took up a whole room. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine having 250 helmets.
I would want, and especially, like, I looked up even on eBay, like the
mini ones,
like the gumball size minis.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I was looking those up, and those things are pricey themselves. Like, I wouldn't mind having like a room full of those, because then I could put it on one wall, you couple shelves, and
right.
you do that. And what I actually thought about doing was seeing if I could get, like the more prominent college football teams, getting some of the minis and putting something up on the wall here behind me. And then when the season starts, like, put them in order of the top 25 as they're ranked week to week. And those things are pricey. Even, just the minis are pricey. So I can't even imagine what it would cost to have 250 full size.
I mean, if these are like legit, like the new helmets, right? I don't know if these are older or whatever, but like if you go out and you get just a Speed Flex helmet from Rydell, for example, and that's the most common helmet in 2024, right? You can get these ridiculous ones, obviously, that are like $800 or whatever, but like a Speed Flex helmet's $500.
Yeah.
$500. And that's without like NFL, logos,
official logos.
Yeah.
Now these are all college. These are all college.
Okay.
But
like those things are copyrighted. Like that it costs money to put that stuff on a helmet, right? So I can't even imagine how much money this guy has invested in this, collection of his. That's amazing.
DK says just get the ones out of the 25-cent gumball machine. Do they even have those machines anymore? Like when Jesse was a kid,
right?
There was a Walmart we used to go to, and we would always, they had one of those with, with the NFL helmets,
right?
Like the college helmets they never had, but the NFL, like, it was always getting the NFL, and he had a whole bag.
Oh yeah.
Of those. And my daughter actually almost choked on one of the lids.
No.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Started to go down her throat.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
Those ones you got to like squeeze to like pop off.
Yes.
Like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I have my mini helmet, my mini Notre Dame helmet hanging right there.
I see that.
And like I like a good mini helmet. Like a good mini helmet is cool. Like I'm down with that. I would just not like somebody. Decaf says he's got all the mini helmets from the Shamrock series in his man cave. That I think is cool. I just think the full size is a little much.
Yeah. Full size, too much space,
Yeah.
too much cost.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of nutty.
The mini. That's the way I would go.
You're going mini. I like these.
Size.
I like these like this size.
I've got one of those. I'm blocking it here. I've got
I see it back there
behind me someplace there. So, yeah.
Right.
What's the biggest collection you have of anything?
So I'm not a huge collector. Some people would say I collect children. But when I was a child,
People would be correct.
I know you're not wrong. When I was a kid and we would go on like summer vacations and things like that, I would collect like a keychain from like every place that we would go. And I had like a giant ring and I would just put all the keychains on it. So I've got that in a box someplace and it's probably got like 50 to 75 keychains on it. So like that was, I guess, my thing when I was a kid. And then the one thing we did when we went on our honeymoon is we went on a cruise to like the different islands and stuff. So we got a Christmas ornament from each of the different islands like that we went to. And so we put them up every Christmas and reminisce. But not much of a collector. Like that's not really, I don't know. I feel like collecting is something you do with extra money. And that's not really a thing in my house.
Yeah.
So
Tyler says movies. Like
That's
people
cool.
still own DVDs. Like those things are going the way of the dinosaur.
That's so
right
true.
Now. Like I used to have and I've still got some, but like right now my problem is I don't have a DVD player that works that I can play them with.
I know, right?
Last time I tried to play one, it showed up in black and white and the sound was bad.
Oh,
it's like, what's going on here? It's like, this is not a 20-year-old VCR. This is a DVD player. It's supposed to be
Are you getting yourself a PS5 for the new NCAA game?
I am not. Okay.
I was just curious. You never really struck me as a video game guy.
No. When Jesse and I talked about this fairly recently, you know, when he was a kid, he had the Nintendos. I can't even remember. Like, I think he had a PlayStation, whatever he had. But, you know, that was back. He would play Madden. He would play college basketball. We might have had, I think he had college football. He had Call of Duty and some of the other stuff. And so he had that probably up through middle school. But by the time he hit high school and he was, you know, there's a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Sports and much more time.
I'm not trying to humble brag here, but he was a good student.
Yeah.
And he was also playing two sports basically year round between football and, you know, baseball during the high school season. And then he played travel ball in the summer. It's just
no time.
He just kind of phased out of having time, you know, for all the video games by the time he got to high school. So
it's exactly what happened in my house. Like as soon as we kind of got to like the high school level, like, because, you know, kid used to be into like making his own, like putting together his own computers and then like playing computer games and stuff on it. He got to high school and he's playing 3 sports and he, like Jesse, he's a very good student. I don't have time for that stuff anymore. Like that stuff kind of falls by the wayside, you know? Yep. So I totally understand where you're coming from on that. On the other hand, I'm absolutely getting myself a video game system because I want to play this damn game.
I'm surprised how into this game you are. I realize everyone's
excited,
crazy for it. But
look, from a video game standpoint,
are you financing this game system?
I am. Well, like as in like monthly payments,
like literally financing. Like where is the money coming? Like, are you taking out a personal loan?
They're not that expensive.
But you know,
I have the money.
I'm not
Sean
go deep, but you know, I know how things work.
You do know how things work, and you know how they work in my house too.
Yes, you said it, not me.
No, I have already informed that this is something that I want to do. I got a giant eye roll, which was totally expected. And hey, it is what I don't buy stuff for myself.
But you got a nod, I assume. Like
it was, hey, if you want to use your own money, you know, is that kind of a thing. And so I save up my personal money that I get as gifts, like for Christmas and Father's Day and birthday.
Because I mean, like I've been around for, hey, honey. So I'm at the store and
get me in trouble.
Yeah, me and Sean are here, and there's this thing. It's really pretty cool. It doesn't cost that much, No? Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. I mean, you're not wrong here at all. You're not wrong. But
And I know those cost less than one of these video game systems.
this is true. I never get anything for myself, and so I'm cashing in that chip at this point. So
I don't blame you.
yeah,
I mean, you know, you only got so many hobbies at this point, right?
this is true. It's like this and sleeping.
That's right.
What worked in my favor is that my 9-year-old really wants it for other games. That
Perfect.
did not hurt my case.
See, I keep forgetting, like, you've got kids of the appropriate age where video
Yes.
game systems still.
Yes, that did not hurt the case at all.
Nice.
So yeah,
nice work.
But when it comes to video games, though, I'm not like a first-person shooter guy or any of those kinds of things. Like, it's all sports games for me. I love sports games, specifically college sports games. There was one year, and I think they only did this once. They did a college baseball game for my PS2, and I love that game. They had, you know, Frank X Stadium and Notre Dame and the whole that was a fun game. I really enjoyed that game.
I think I vaguely remember that. Like, you might have sent me like a screenshot or something of X Stadium from that game, or
it was cool. It was cool. I may still have it someplace like in a box or whatever, but you know, I love sports games, so this is right up my alley. This is right there, and it hasn't been around for 11 years, so
good times.
I'm in.
All right. When is that coming out? It's like not till
July
right?
19th or something like that. I don't know. I'd have to look.
All right. I got to wrap up because Jesse popped back in and they're getting ready to hit the road to Cleveland. So I got to go.
All right.
Got to go say my goodbyes before they hit the road. I think they've been waiting for us to wrap it up.
I'm sure they have. I told my wife Fridays are the short shows.
Yeah, I know. Hour and a half later.
I know.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Hit the like button before you leave if you would. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you Monday on IB Nation Sports Talk.
Always talking absolutes, people. That's your tip.